Welcome once again to another episode. Today I'll be looking at setting up your GCP SDK tool using a Docker container. It's easier that way, and of course every step I use here can be replicated on Windows and it should work. But let me quickly look at that of Windows. Okay, let's go down to, is there any tip for Windows? Okay, so using a Docker image for the latest release specific of Cloud SDK. So Windows people, Windows users could just download this image and run this, use this image to run a container on their Windows system, and of course do what they need to do. Now the steps I follow here are such that if you're creating a Linux container on Windows, fine, you can use these steps. But if you're creating a Windows container on Windows, then the steps I'll be showing you today doesn't apply to you. So be extremely careful. Now, before I go to start the tutorials, let me just have you look at this image. When you're installing SDK using the normal installer on Windows, remember to tick off this. See, create a desktop shortcut, start this shell and run this to configure SDK. Of course, you do that, and at the end of the day. So, okay, let's quickly go to Ubuntu. And at the bottom of all these steps, these are steps you will normally run on your Ubuntu system. But at the bottom, they say here, if you're running it in a cloud, in a Docker image, then use just this single line to run it. You could place this in a Docker file. You know, it doesn't matter. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let me quickly bring up my terminal. This is a Docker file, and here I'm using Ubuntu image 18.04 LTS. Now, my advice is, if you're using Linux systems in production or preparing something that would go to production, always use the latest version. In this case, 20.04 might not be the best for you. So it's better you use a previous version still on the LTS track anyway, so you are sure all issues with that release have been taken care of. So in this case, I'm using this. Now I will be running an update and upgrade. I'm passing in the -y option. That option makes it such that I don't need to interact with the apt-get tool. That tells the apt-get tool that it can go ahead and install anything it wishes to install, and I grant that permission to it. After that, I will install several things: Vim, Nano, GNU PG tool, and curl. This is for our keys, and this is for bringing in files. This will be used in this command we see here. It is there. So this is part of a Docker file. You just copy this, okay, and then place it on a line in your Docker file like this run line. Okay, so I have split mine. I'm doing an update because I'll be installing this, and if you run that line without doing an update, you will discover that you have issues. So that's what led me to actually put this here, this -f. Okay, so normally you don't need it if you run it at once. So we're going to create an image from this, and then the entry point is actually a process that keeps running, so that we can have any container we create using this image continuously running. We can start and stop it as we wish, but that it will always be running. But I would advise against that method. I prefer you create an image that you create a container, an image, or use an image that only that you use to create a container that comes up when you need to work with your SDK tool. When you don't need to, is switched off. I'll show you both methods, and of course it's a very straightforward thing to do. Okay, so we have this image, this Docker file. Let's get out of there. So let me bring this in a bit. Okay, so we have that Docker file. So let me see the images I currently have, and I'm using a new tool called Podman from Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It's not different from Docker, but the reason why I will be switching to it, or why I have switched to it, is because it has an options to play around with pods, Kubernetes pods, and then it doesn't run as a daemon. Okay, so that reduces the number of processes and of course my RAM on my system that gets affected by the things I do. So I already have this, which I created from that Docker file, and I have these other two images, and of course these are intermediate images that have come in between. So I'm going to create a new one. Okay, I could destroy this and create a new one. Okay, so let's see how that will be done. Maybe I'll make this video a bit short. Okay, so making a video short doesn't necessarily mean that the process will be short. When you are building an image from a Docker file, it can take a bit of time to do it. So I have done it already. I don't need to repeat it anymore. I simply show you the command to use to have this done. So first of all, let's check what is there. We have a Docker file there. All right, so to run this, we will say podman build. Let's tag that image, call it whatever you like in my case I called it this podman, and then pick that current directory. That's what the dot sign there says. Okay, so on Windows you would create a Docker file and of course run the Docker command, and podman is easy to install. Check it out, how to install podman on your Windows or Linux systems, and then use it as you see fit. Okay, all right, so when you run this, it will actually create this image here, and then of course because of that last line in that image, let's check that out. Let me go back. Okay, docker. Okay, because of this last, the entry point here, when we create a container using this image that we'll create here, that image will run continuously in the background. We can start and stop it and connect to it and play around with it and all that. Okay, so actually I will create a new image because I will show you how to actually set up the SDK. In this other one I've already set up the SDK, and I basically want us to see how the process goes. Okay, so let's create a new image, build. Let's tag Ubuntu podman 2. Okay, and then current directory. Let's see how that, it shouldn't take long because I've done that already. So step 1, of course, it walks through the steps in the Docker file. Okay, that's step 1, pulling the image. The image is already here locally, so it shouldn't take that long. Okay, skip that. It's using the cache. Then it should skip every part because they have all I haven't altered that file, so the file is still the same as I originally used it. So it will use the cached versions of those layers that are available and then create an image for me. Okay, so let's give it a few seconds or a few minutes, and the image should come through. Then we'll check to see, and then use that image to play around. Let me hope that image doesn't have my SDK already set up, because I did a commit. What podman does, it actually commits. I don't think I've noticed Docker doing that. You actually have to manually commit if you made changes to the original base image. Okay, so let's give it a few minutes. It shouldn't take more than that. Okay, so this is the first method. When we're through, I will show you the other method where we don't need to use a Docker file. We just run that Ubuntu image in the terminal and get it set up. Okay, I think let me switch. It's taking a bit of time. It's holding on. All right. So let me check something. right, so it's still on it. Okay, give it a few more seconds. If it doesn't, then I'll stop the video and get back to you once it's done. Okay, so let me stop the video and actually get back to you when it's done. Okay, so we're back. It's gone through, and so let's check out the images we have. Podman image list. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, so that's the image we've created there. All right. Okay, so now let's use that image to create a container. Okay, let's go here. Let's do Podman run. Let's name it runs as a daemon. Let's name it Ubuntu Podman terminal. I think I removed that. I have that terminal, and the image we'll be using is Ubuntu Podman 2. Okay, so we're using that. Let's hit that and see what happens. Hopefully our syntax is correct. We don't have errors. Okay, so let's create a container called Ubuntu Podman terminal, and then using the Ubuntu Podman 2 image, and then we run it like a daemon. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay. All right. So give it a few minutes to get it done. Okay, this is obviously taking a bit to get through, so when it's done, I'll return. Okay, so the image of the container has been created, so let's clear the screen and then check containers, containers list. Okay, sorry, containers, please, not containers. Okay, so we have latest. Okay, that's running. Okay, so that is running. So let's go into that container and do some work to set up our SDK. All right, we need to sign in or log in, and then so that we'll now select default project in that. So let's do that. The name of the container is Ubuntu Podman terminal. Okay, Ubuntu Podman terminal, and then we'll run a bash shell in there. Okay, so we're there. Let's do which gcloud. Okay, it's there. So let's see. Let me gcloud projects lists. Okay, let's see what that gives us. I'm hoping it to complain. So in this case, we created a container that is constantly working. Okay, so it's constantly running as a daemon, Okay, so I advise against this. So it's better the second method is where you just create a container that only comes up when you need it and use it then. Okay, so in this case it tells us that we need to do gcloud auth login and then obtain new credentials, and then if you have already logged in, you need to set the account you want to use. So we haven't done that, so let me clear the screen. Okay, so we do gcloud auth login. All right, so we now right click on this link and say open link. So I'm going to open this link and get my access code and then come back here and get in there. So let me just open this link, and when it gets to the part of getting my access code, I will stop the video and get back to you. Okay. All right, so it comes up here, and then I'll click on this account. Okay, I click here and it signs me in and ask if I want to authorize this. Yes, I want to. Let me stop the video. I'll get back to you. Okay, welcome. Of course, we're able to I was able to set up the our SDK using a Docker file, and of course the Docker container will be running. That's an option you might use. Okay, let's check that and be sure. Containers list. Okay, all right, so it's up and running. Okay, that's all right, it's up and running. That is that. So if we go back here and we do which gcloud, of course we get that to show you where the binary is. And then if we do gcloud projects lists, okay, we should get back a list of the projects after signing up with our account. Okay, so that's that. So let's exit from here. Okay, let's clear the screen and then let's check to see containers or container list. Okay, it's still running. All right. Okay, so let's use the second method that will actually do this in one go. So that will be podman run and open an interactive session with a terminal. We'll give this a name. We'll give it Ubuntu podman best. Prefer this simple, straightforward, but of course if you wish to make changes as time goes on to your image, then using a Docker file would be best to do that. Okay, so what image are we using? Ubuntu 18.04. I always advise you use a version. LTS has to the current version of Ubuntu has to have been around for, say, or let me put it this way, you need to have a point, I think 0.2 release to be extremely sure that you won't have issues. So I prefer to use a previous version 18.04. That Bionic Beaver, that is more trusted than 20. I think 20.04 is just 0.1 release, not up to 0.2. So we'll use that one. Okay, you could also use 20 if you wanted, but I advise for production, of course, 18 is more mature and reliable. Okay, so let's create this. No D options to run as a daemon. So let's see. Okay, so immediately we have that. So let's quickly look at the images. Okay, so that's it there. It's running up for 9 seconds. So that's it. Now let's set up our SDK. If you do which G Cloud, you get nothing back because we've not set it up yet. So the first thing we do is apt gets updates. That succeeds. We do apt gets upgrade. Then we'll pass the Y option. The Y option will not ask us for permission before getting things done. For those of you that are quite observant, you see that my image here has changed. That's because currently where I am, there's a curfew. I didn't know there was a curfew when I went out, but when I got to my station, I discovered there was a curfew, so I had to come back home and do my videos from home, and so things are a bit different. Okay, so let's have this. While that is doing its business, let's go to where we'll be picking up our file from. Like I said previously, I think I missed. Let's check this out. Okay, so it's here. Obviously I have, okay, it's back. Okay, so all these other steps are for if you're running it on your system, but if you're running it in a Docker container, then you kind of Docker image, you just need to run this one line. This line could have been placed in a Docker file like I showed previously, but in this case I'm going to do that from my terminal, and there's several things we'll be using. Okay, so let me copy that one. We will need to install curl and also GNU PG to use, and insert our repository keys, and we need all those, so we'll do that. Let's look at, basically you need to do this. If you happen to run that command I just copied without first updating and installing some tools, then you might need to run it with the option of fix missing. Okay, it happened to me, and it would happen to you. Okay, so let's have this set up, and then we'll do the installation of several tools that we'll be using to set up our SDK. Okay, so that's done. So let's do apt get install vim nano GNU PG and curl. Okay, and we'll pass the Y option again, and it should help us do that. Okay, so it begins. Luckily for me, my internet is a bit happy this evening, so I'm surprised the government hasn't shut it down, but let's make use of this while we can. Okay, so when that is ready, we will now move on to installing, running that this line of code, or line of code that we copied from here. Okay, so just copy to the end, and you don't need to pick up this run. That's actually a Dockerfile command, but we're not using a Dockerfile, we're doing it from the terminal, so we just copy that and leave out the run part of it, copy that, and then have that happen. Okay, so it's 50% done. In a few minutes it'll be all done. So let me bring this down. Let's bring the size, the height down a bit. Okay, oh, I see GNU, so this appears okay, that's what we're installing, sorry. All right, so okay, so if you're on a Windows system, and of course you intend to use a Linux virtual machine, a Linux image to run a container. It works the same way. It's the same set of commands, provided Docker is installed. And like I said, for Windows there are some requirements. Virtualization usually doesn't come enabled by default. You have to do that. Then you need to be using a licensed copy of Windows. You need to minimum Windows version, I think, is Windows 10 Professional, and then Windows 8 the same, I think, Pro version is what you would need to be able to even have virtualization work and be able to install Docker. And then after that you can do that. If you're not so okay with playing around with your Windows system, you can do this, and then anytime you want to run, you go ahead and do that. I also created a script actually. I created a script that would help us automate this process. So so that's the script. I'll walk us through the script. I'll show us how to set up the script on our system, so that you can easily run after creating this Docker image container. You can, from the tool, switch it off, stop it, start it, and the rest. Anytime you want to work, you just run that tool and it runs the two commands, which will be to start it, and then after that to connect to it, and then give you the terminal so that you can work with it. Okay, so I have tested it. So if I'll make the script available on GitLab Gist or GitHub and GitHub Gist. So if you try it out and it gives you issues, please leave a comment so that I can check it out and correct any errors that I might have in the script, although I have tested it completely, so I would expect it to work. Okay, so the script is don't be so afraid of all the code you find in it. It's pretty simple. Okay, we will look at that once you're through with this. Okay, so that's coming up. All right. Okay, there is one other thing I should have installed. That is apt utils. I think I will do that. That should be part of what you should install too. But if you don't install it, it will still go through. But I kind of think is important when I'm running. I will install it because when I'm running that code provided by the Google team, I think issues, you will see some things that will be skipped because of the absence of that particular library. So okay, let me do that again. Apt get install apt utils. All right, so that shouldn't take quite fast. Let's do that. I didn't pass the Y option, so I have to manually ask the system to go ahead and install that. So always remember to put the Y options when you're running from a Docker file, so that it does this thing. Okay, so let me paste that code I copied, and then of course the key has been entered. That's why I see OK here. Okay, that's why you have the OK here. And then we start to install the other things, and then we install the Cloud SDK. Okay, so that's coming up. All right, so maybe perhaps I should look at the tool while we wait for this. Okay, so let me minimize this. Let me minimize this so that we can see the tool. Okay, of course, the first part, the first line, which is the command that tells what library should be used to run this. This is a bash script, so for Python, you have Python there, and as the case may be. So that's required. Then of course we start by the fifth line there says take whatever the user puts in and make it all lowercase. So that makes sure that even if you were to write, if you're expected to write Paul and you put Paul with a capital L, or you put Paul with a capital P, or you put Paul that's all the letters are in capital case. That first fifth line would actually change it to small cases, and then so that we can use it to do some comparison and check to see if you actually enter the right commands. Okay, you have 27%, so it will take a bit, so let me use that time to talk about this. Okay, so in bash we have something that I want us to look at. Now you see here we have a $ and 1. That 1 tells us it's actually an environmental variable that represents or holds the value of the first argument passed to a command. We have 0, $0. That is actually the command itself, and then 1, from 1 to infinity, is actually each of the command line arguments that you pass to it. So this command takes two arguments. The first one is either a start or stop text or word. The second one is the name of the container you're trying to start or stop. Okay, so in this first instance, it now checks to see if you actually put on line 8. It checks to see if you actually put two arguments, pass two arguments to the command. If you didn't, then it tells you need to do that. If you did, then it goes in here, and then of course, if it's not 2, that means you didn't pass in 2 arguments, and it comes here to tell you that you need 2 command arguments, and you need to pass 2 command line arguments, and then tells you what those arguments are. First, it can be either a start or stop, and then the name of the container, and then shows you the format in which this command should be run. Okay, so and then it exits. The script stops running when we put that exit 1. If a script runs successfully, it should be exit 0, but in this case it doesn't because you didn't put in the required number of arguments, so it's exit 0. So here it checks to see, do you put in a stop or a start, whichever. If you did, then it goes on to check if it is any one of them. Then it does what? It checks to see if that container you're trying to work with exists. Now you see here with $2. Now that is the second option, which is of course the argument we pass to the command, and that's the name of the container. Now this last part here said if you run this command normally, you would get an error message in the standard output because of the absence of that container. So instead of bringing that out to the standard output for you to see, we'll pass it into this null device. Okay, so we're more interested to check with the Z option whether this returns an empty string. If it returns an empty string, then that container doesn't exist, and you are told to create that container and then run the file again. I think I missed something here. I need to put an exit code here. Okay, let's exit. Okay, so the script stops running when it gets there. Now if you actually created that container previously, it will check, and then if the command you entered is for a start, it will check to see if it is running. If it is running, it tells you that okay, if it is running, it actually, okay, sorry, if it's not running, because we use the not operator here, okay, this one here, if it's not running, then this is the not operator. Okay, if it's not running, then it starts, it uses the podman container start command to start that container, and then executes a bash command in that container, and then opens up gives you an access to that container, and then you can work with your gcloud commands. If not, it tells us that the container is already running, and then it just gives you access to the container. Okay, so where it is a stop command, it checks to see if the container is running. Now if the container is running, it stops it. If it is not, it tells you the container isn't running, and so there's no need to go further. You simply just exit from that and then go down there. And then this last part here, in case you actually didn't put the specified number of let's go up there, let me see what that one is about. Okay, so if you didn't put a start or stop, okay, it actually tells you didn't put the required you didn't pass in the required number of command line arguments, and then it it should exit from here. Let me go back here. Let me do this. Exit. Okay, 1. Okay, so let's go back to the top. Anytime things didn't go the way they should, you should actually exit. So that's basically what this script does. You know, that's what it does, and it checks all that, and then let's write that file. We made changes, so let's write it. So it checks all that, and then you will place that in your system path, so that as at your will you would use that command to either start or stop the container, and then get access to that container so that you can run your gcloud command, and saves you typing and all that. Okay, let's check to see. Okay, it's 56%. Okay, so so that is that. Now let's see how this command can be used. Let me close out of there. All right, so we will do pd. Okay, it is here, so we'll do this. We haven't placed it in our path yet, so that is what it expects. If I run it now, it complains. It says 2 command line arguments are required, and I didn't supply any. So let me put S and see. It says 2 command line arguments are required, and I put only 1. So okay, let me put S and P. Okay, let's see what happens. It says 2 are required. Format is this. Okay, so we didn't supply that. Let me clean that up. So let me go here. Let me start that. All right, 2 are required. Let me put any name and see if okay. So say a container with that name does not exist. Please create the container first. So we don't have any container called Ubuntu, you know. Okay, we have start as part of the command, but we don't have this. So it checks for that, and then tells you actually need to create the command first. You need to create the container first before any other thing. Okay, so let me come back here. Let's see where we are. We're 70% out. Okay, so in a short while we should have everything in order. My internet speed has dropped a bit. Okay, so all right, so 71. Okay, so that's what that script does. Okay, there's still room for improvement. You could actually look at the script and change things as you wish. Okay, so I would make that available, like I said, on GitHub Gist and GitLab Gist, so you can take it from there and make modifications and do it on your system. Okay, so while that is coming up, should we work? Okay, 73%. Let's go ahead and place this in our system path. Now, system paths usually are found in the / directory. Okay, in fact, they are there. So, but I can also have a system path, and like in my home directory, I have a system path bin. Okay, there I drop programs that I've written that I want to use. I don't want to make them system wide. If I place them here, any others user of my computer has an account will not be able to access them because it belongs to me. But if I want them to be able to access them, I'll place them in the / location, / bin or /usr / bin, and that will make it accessible to any user that has the authorization and the privileges to use that command. So I'm going to put this command here. Okay, so let me show you something. Let's do lists long so that we'll see what's happened. Okay, so this is actually a link, symbolic link. It links this command to this file. Okay, so if I wanted to run this, normally I should run this. Okay, so I simply run this and it calls this. So I'm going to create a symbolic link. This is the same thing here. Okay, all right, this is used to get file info for files on my system. I wrote this script, so I now call it an alias, but this is more like it's called a symbolic link. So I'm going to place that file, that script I wrote in here. Okay, so let's copy it. It's in the download folder. Okay, sorry, I have to go out one. Okay, let me clear this. Let me clear the screen, and then I'll do the down. Okay, no. Oh, no, I'm already there, so no need to do that. Okay, so downloads, I have PD. Okay, so not change into, I'm supposed to copy, not change. Okay, downloads PD. Okay, I want to copy it to my home directory bin. All right, so let's go into home directory bin. I think that's where we are. We're here already, so I didn't need to put that first part, but here. So let's list that out. Where's that file? PD. There it is. Okay, if I wanted to call this, I would just do, if I would do, let me source my bash file, bash configuration file. Okay, let me source that. Okay, and then if I do P, I do D, I do hyphen, it comes out. So, but I don't want it to come out with the .sh extension. I just want it to be something slick. So let me get rid of this and then clear the screen, and let me create a symbolic link. Link as symbolic S, and PD, and then PD G Cloud. Okay, let me get rid of this and I create that. So let's look at that now. We now have PD. Okay, you see that the main file itself is here. Okay, so let's do ls long. Okay, so if I call this, it calls this file. So that's the symbolic link I've created. So let's go back here, and okay, we are done. All right, so what's the next thing we're supposed to do? We've done that, and then let's do G Cloud. Let me clear the screen. Okay, so see G Cloud. Okay, we could do G Cloud which to see if it was installed. Okay, cloud. Okay, it's there. So we have G Cloud projects lists. Okay, it complains because I haven't set up any default account for this particular installation of my G Cloud tool. So I will do G Cloud auth login. Okay, all right, so I right click on this like I did previously and then say open link. So the link should open up. All right, so it opens up, and then I pick the actual Gmail account that I used to set up my GCP account. So I keep using this one. I have this one also, but let me use this one. So when I click on this, note, I think the keys you receive to be able to pass into that window to have it to authenticate you and set up your tools are different for every try. So don't keep the keys and think you can use them between logins. It won't work. So before I do this, okay, if I do this, then you will see my token that I should use to authenticate myself. So I'll just stop the video here and get back to you, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so we are back. I've been able to put in the code. That is the code. You can see part of it, but like I told you, it's always changing. It's not the same. So even if you copied this and try to use it at your end, it won't work. So let's hit enter to verify ourselves. Of course, we have been verified. So it says there, let me clear the screen. Okay, all right, so let's go on. Now if I do G Cloud projects, okay, projects lists, all right, okay, so it lists data, so we're all set up. So it's left for me to set up an account here that I want to use. Say I want to use this first one, okay, and GAE demo. I would say G Cloud config set projects, and if I type that, it should pick that up for me. Okay, autocomplete isn't set up here, so it won't work. I think there's a means to set up autocomplete. Check the documentation for that. So if I set that up, okay, and that's been updated, so anything I do now will be run against this particular project as default. I haven't set the default zone. You can do that. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's look at how we can use that tool to play around. Okay, so let me look at that tool now. Okay, so let me exit out of this. Okay, exit out of this. All right, so let me clear the screen. Let me do podman container list. Okay, so only one container is running, and it's not the one we actually just worked with. So let me add the A option, and then there you go. Let me bring this out. Let me stretch this a bit, okay, so that you see what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the one for the simple version, or the one we call best. Okay, so that's it, and you see there it has exited because I went out of the environment, that container. So I want to start it. Okay, so I can call my tool. Okay, the tool is there, pcloud, and I say start because I want to walk. I say start, and then I give it a name. Say I don't give it a name, I do this, it complains. I need to pass into command, so I say Ubuntu this, and what's the name, podman best. Okay, and I hit that. All right, so you see that I'm already in the container, has been started, and I'm in it already. It was exited here. Let's run the terminal command to find it. Okay, let's do this list. You see, up 10 seconds, 12 seconds, sorry. So we're in there now. I can easily come here. Let's say let me clear the screen. All right, so gcloud, what do we do? Let's create compute instance. Compute, double tab. Oh, it doesn't work. So compute instances, create. Okay, call it Jojo, and let's pick a zone for it. Zone US Central 1A. Okay, and machine type, let's do a small machine type, F1 micro. Let's take that one. I can do this, F1 micro. All right, so let's do that. Let's see what happens. Okay, all right, so it's been created. Okay, so let's shut it down. gcloud, compute instances, delete Jojo. Okay, so let's close that one up. All right, yes, I want. Okay, so you basically like your system, just like a container. And the beauty of this is that you could just take this container. If you have a new system, you just take this container, install Docker there, and then run this container there, and you're done. You know. Okay, so let's do that. Let me exit out of here. Let's get out of there. Let me clear the screen. Let me do podman commit. Let me see, podman, do you have a commit? Yes, you should. Okay, commit. Let's commit this. Podman best. Okay, we've made some changes to the image we use, so let me also commit that. Okay, all right. Okay, so while that is committing, you can see now we've added the script to our system path, so you can always run it from there without issues. So let me go back here. All right, so let's give a few minutes and it should be done. Okay, so it's committing. All right. Okay, so I decided to use Podman. That's a new tool I discovered, and it's still the same with Docker. Like I said, the advantage is that it doesn't run as a daemon, so it frees up resources on your system for other more important tasks to use. Okay, so but very soon I will be moving fully to Podman. Okay, Red Hat Linux is the owner of the tool, so you check it out. And another advantage is that you can use Podman to work with pods, Kubernetes pods, and so cluster pods, and so that's a great advantage in addition to working with Docker containers and other types of containers. All right, so that is that for that. Okay, so that's basically that's it. And let this finish. I will stop the container using that pd gcloud command. Remember, the pd gcloud command, you can call it any name you want. That's what I decided to call it. You give it a name that you can easily remember. Okay, so that's been done. So let me do pd cloud stop ubuntu. Okay, podman best. Okay, we stop that, and in a few seconds it will stop it. All right, so that's been stopped. If we do podman containers, okay, container list A. All right, so there it is. It's the first one there. It has exited, so it's good. Okay, thank you for watching. Leave your likes and comments, and then check out the GitHub gist for that script so that you can use it locally on your system. If you have issues trying to set it up, please leave comments and I will get back to you. Thank you and bye bye. Thanks for watching.